All right, so today we're going to do a deep dive on a couple of stories that seem kind of different at first.
Yeah.
One is about like this really interesting AI company that got acquired,
Right.
and the other one is about kind of global trade shakeups that could affect
Yeah.
a lot of people.
Yeah, everyone pretty much.
Yeah, but stick with us because like by the end you'll see how these pieces connect in ways that you might not expect.
It's always those unexpected links, right?
Yeah. Okay, so first up is Greenscreens.ai.
Okay.
So this company is like barely 5 years old,
Wow.
and they just got bought for like $160 million,
Huge.
which is a mix of like cash and company shares, just so you know.
Right, right.
So that's got to mean that like they're doing something really right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that kind of price tag in such a short time, it really says something about what they've developed, you know?
Totally.
It's got to be valuable.
So they're like, I guess you could say wizards of freight pricing.
Yeah.
They use AI to predict those like buy and sell rates for shipping companies. Like if you think about it, every single thing that you buy, pretty much everything you use in your daily life travel by like truck, train, ship, or plane at some point.
Oh, yeah. It's crazy when you think about how we rely on that whole transportation network, right?
Yeah.
And figuring out the price for each, leg of that trip
Yeah.
is a huge puzzle for the logistics people.
Right.
So Greenscreens is trying to make that easier with their AI.
Yeah. And it's not even just about like making it easier. It's
Right.
about making it more efficient.
Absolutely.
Which is why Triumph Financial, which is a company that specializes in like financial and tech solutions for the transportation world,
Makes sense.
decided to acquire Greenscreens.
Yeah.
They see the potential here.
I
and I
bet.
think it's huge.
Yeah. So what's really fascinating here is what this means going forward, for the future.
Yeah.
Greenscreens now has all the resources of this much bigger company.
Right.
That means they can grow faster, reach more customers, and like really refine their tech in new ways.
Yeah. Totally. But like there's always like but isn't there?
Uh-oh.
What if they lose some of that like startup, agility,
Right?
the innovation within a larger corporation?
Yeah, it's the classic dilemma. You get the resources, but then what do you have to give up?
Exactly.
So it'll be interesting to see how Greenscreens handles that.
For sure. Okay, so this acquisition could be like a game changer for the whole freight industry.
I think so.
I mean, it could become the industry standard for pricing.
Yeah.
But here's like the thing that's really blowing my mind.
What's that?
How does their AI even work?
Yeah.
Like what information is it looking at to predict these prices?
Well, that's the really cool part.
Okay.
It's not just the obvious stuff like fuel costs or the distance things travel,
Right.
They're pulling data from all these seemingly unrelated sources like weather patterns and like geopolitical events, even social media trends. Yeah, they're trying to find these like hidden correlations that we might miss.
So they're like building this crazy complex model of the entire world
Kind of, yeah.
to predict how much it will cost to ship like a box of socks from China to like your door.
Exactly. They're trying to understand like all the ripple effects of different events and how they could impact the cost of moving stuff around the world.
That's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
Okay, so before we move on to the next story, let's pause for a sec
Okay.
and think about like the bigger picture here.
Right.
What do you think is going to be the biggest impact of this acquisition on the entire freight industry, like as a whole?
That's a good question.
But here's where things get kind of crazy.
Oh, yeah.
While Greenscreens is doing their thing in the freight world,
Right.
there are these like massive changes happening that could affect like everyone.
Yeah, pretty much.
And that's where our second story comes in tariffs.
Okay.
It seems like a total change of subject.
It does. But trust me, we'll connect the dots.
Okay, good.
It'll all come together.
So tariffs.
Yeah.
When I hear that word, I think of like econ textbooks. Right. Trade wars.
Yeah.
Not exactly the most like exciting stuff.
I mean, it can be pretty dramatic.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when you think about the impacts on like the economy
Okay.
and on regular people.
Yeah.
That's when it gets real.
Okay, I'm listening. So like what's the latest with these tariffs?
Well, some big ones are going into effect tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
Targeting Canada, Mexico, and China with like new import taxes.
A triple whammy.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those of us who don't spend all day reading about like international trade,
Right.
break it down for us.
Okay.
So what are the rates?
Well, it's a Trump policy,
Okay.
and the rates are significant.
Like how significant are we talking?
Well, Canada and Mexico are looking at a 25% tariff on pretty much everything,
Wow.
except Canadian energy resources.
Interesting.
Yeah, those get a 10% rate.
Okay.
And China's getting hit with an extra 10% on top of what they already have.
So things are going to get more expensive.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, but before we get to that,
Yeah.
what are retaliatory tariffs?
Oh, yeah. It sounds like a trade war is brewing.
It does, right?
What are those?
Okay, so basically retaliatory tariffs are how countries respond to tariffs.
Okay.
So let's say country A puts a tariff on goods from country B.
Right.
Country B might retaliate by putting tariffs on goods from country A.
Gotcha. So it's like a tit for tat kind of thing.
Exactly. It's like saying, hey, if you're going to do that,
Yeah.
I'm going to do it too.
Right.
And it can escalate quickly.
Into like a full-blown trade war.
Exactly, where everyone loses.
Okay, so back to the tariffs themselves.
Yeah.
Trump's goals are to address like illegal immigration
Uh-huh.
and drug trafficking.
Right. Especially fentanyl from Mexico.
Okay, but how have the countries being targeted reacted?
They're not happy.
I can imagine.
All three countries have said they're against these tariffs.
Yeah.
Canada and Mexico are planning those retaliatory tariffs we talked about
Right.
on billions of dollars worth of U.S. goods.
So this is about to get real for everyone, not just like businesses and politicians.
Right.
Like what kind of impact is this going to have on the economy?
Right.
More importantly, how will it affect like you and me?
Well, economists are predicting a few things.
Okay, like what?
First, we could see inflation
Okay.
as those tariffs get passed down from importers to retailers.
Right.
And eventually to us.
So basically our everyday expenses go up,
Yeah.
but our paychecks probably don't
Probably not.
ouch anything else.
Yeah, we could also see slower economic growth.
Okay.
When trade gets disrupted, businesses suffer.
Yep.
And that can lead to job losses.
Right. And it's not just a U.S. issue.
Nope.
The global economy is all connected.
Exactly.
So these trade wars could have consequences everywhere.
Right, it's like throwing a rock in a pond.
Okay.
The ripples spread out.
Infect the whole thing.
Exactly. And it's hard to predict how those ripples will play out.
Yeah,
But things are definitely going to get more complex.
for sure. Okay. So let's bring it back to you, the listener.
Okay.
Imagine you're in charge of trade policy.
What would you do in this situation?
That's a tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough question with no easy answers,
For sure.
but it's one we're thinking about.
Absolutely.
All right, so we've talked about this like super cool AI company changing the freight world.
Yeah.
And we've kind of gone into these like, potentially rough waters of global trade.
Right? With the tariffs?
Yeah, I remember at the beginning I said these stories might connect.
Uh-huh.
Well, this is where we bring it all together.
It's funny how that happens sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Like the most interesting things come from connecting these seemingly unrelated things.
Okay, so connect the dots for us.
All right.
How do these tariffs tie back to Greenscreens.ai?
Well, think about it. Trade disruptions like the kind these tariffs could cause.
Right.
They add even more complexity to supply chains.
Right. It's like navigating a maze that's constantly changing.
Exactly. And in that kind of environment, accurate information is super valuable,
Yeah.
especially when it comes to pricing. Companies need to know how much it costs to get their stuff from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And those costs can change a lot when tariffs and trade wars are happening.
Okay, so Greenscreens with their AI predictions could actually benefit from all this.
It's possible.
It's like one country's trade war is another company's opportunity.
Yeah, it's how it goes. Sometimes disruption leads to innovation.
Right.
Businesses are going to have to adapt. And a tool like Greenscreens could be super helpful.
So it's not even just about predicting prices anymore.
Right.
It's about predicting future prices in a crazy market.
Exactly.
And I think that brings up a big question for our listeners.
What's that?
Could AI actually help reduce the negative impacts of these tariffs?
That's a really good question.
Or is that just wishful thinking?
I don't think there's an easy answer.
Yeah.
We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out.
Right, but it shows why it's important to stay informed.
Absolutely. Even when these issues seem complicated.
Totally. And if you want to explore these topics more, we've got links to all the sources in the show notes.
Go check it out.
Always do your own research.
Bert, there's always more to learn.
Couldn't agree more. And we'll see you on our next deep dive.